Hello and welcome in today's exciting episode. Well, it's about beads and beading, or more about the evolution of my beading on the beaded trim and the embellishment, so the all-over beading that I've done on jackets. So I've got out a dozen or two of my jackets, and I'm just going to talk you through how I started and how I went on with the beading on all my Chanel style jackets. So here we go. It's perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Perfect jacket. So I was supposed to be doing a tweed jacket this weekend, but I just didn't feel like it. So I got out some beads, and this is a sort of bag of mixed beads, and I'm sorting them into different colours, which I'll then use on various jackets. Anyway, so I had to do something for this video. So yeah, I thought I got out some jackets, and see, these are all the beads I still haven't sorted yet. So if you do want to see a video on how to make a jacket step by step, there's this one here. There's a card up top, and you just click on that. Or I've got a whole playlist called Just Jackets, and there's dozen of them or so. The longer ones have more detail, the shorter episodes have a little less detail, depending on what you feel you need. And yeah, but in this, and there's also episodes where I just look at all the different jackets. This one is going to be about the beading though. So let's do this. First, I'll start with one of the early ones, and then I'll show you a few of the middle ones, and then I'll show you more recent ones. Oh, and if you want to see the beaded trim being made from start to finish, like this Banana Chanel one, there's a whole episode on that. So you can just check out the playlist for beaded trim, and you'll see step by step how to make it. But this is one of the early ones, one of the first ones I did. This is another early one, and you can see how relatively simple it is. It's all sort of quite flat, and this is a mix of modern day sequins and some vintage sequins in there, and there's also a little smattering of beads on there, but there aren't any really big beads, and it's actually right up to the edge of the jacket. So obviously I made the jacket first, then I measured around the edges to see where the trim would go. I just used a bit of ribbon to measure how big I wanted the piece of trim to be, and then I made it. So what you do is you cut out a strip of netting to be the base, then you stitch on some sequins, and that's the sort of the base that you then put the little beads on over. And this one I got a little bit more adventurous. This was like 5 jackets in, 10 jackets in, something like that. I've made over 100 jackets now. This is another Linton tweed. And here I think this is the first one where I used invisible thread. So it's like fishing line. And so when you don't have bead holes, so these are little soldiers, and then there's also some little screws in there as well, and I just stitched them on with invisible thread. Here I've got some toys, they're like lions and tigers, and I stitched them on with invisible thread and then beaded around them. Of course, the sequin base was done first. And yeah, so it was really frustrating that if I had my time again, I would start using a frame straight away. Like, you just buy a really big paint canvas frame, and then you take off the canvas and use the wooden frame, and you just staple gun some stiff net to it, and then you bead onto that, and then you cut it out, and then you stitch it to a jacket. That's how I've done all these ones. But yeah, I didn't have a frame, so I just did it by hand. And if you've ever tried to embroider without using an embroider hoop, then you've tried embroidering with an embroidery hoop, you'll know that the difference is just so extreme. Oh, this has orange silk as the lining. It's absolutely gorgeous. This is another Linton tweed. Again, this is 12, 15 years ago, this one. And I have bridal tulle over the top of the beading. Once I finish the beading, then I just lay this really fine tulle over the top. It's fine, but it's really quite strong as well. And that's just to protect the beading because, I mean, most people have never seen this level of beading in their real life. Like, they've just seen photos and they tend to like touch photos. And yeah, so sometimes people will jab at something or try and pull a bead off, or I don't know, I guess they're not socialized correctly. And anyway, and I just also, because I'd put so much effort into making these, I just wanted a layer of protection on them so that, I mean, if anything bad happens to them, I'm the one who's going to have to do all the repairs. So with this one, I did 2 layers around the belt. So there's one at the hem, and then there's another double one at the natural waist. It was using even more beads, so I guess I was buying more beads. And then this one, it starts to be more 3-dimensional, and I really cram all the beads in. Well, not cram, but you can still see each and every bead. It's still a really good showcase of beads, but I mean, there is not a millimeter, no room wasted on these. You can just see all the beads and how beautiful they all are. I think there's still, you can still see every individual bead. And I think they're just really well placed, but they're clustered beautifully in my opinion. And again, the giraffes and the dinosaurs, they're all stitched on with invisible thread, which, oh my gosh, it just nets so easily. And I cannot believe I made this one still. I was working without a frame because I've never seen anyone do this sort of embroidery. I was just doing it on my own and I had to work out how to do things. But if you're starting from scratch, I 1000% recommend that you staple gun your base fabric, whether you're using silk organza or net like I do. Net is better if you want something really heavy. Silk organza is only good if you're doing thin layer of beads. So yeah, the netted, the stiff netting is much better, and I use 2 layers of it. And you do have to stretch it over your over your wooden frame, but only so that the tension is just there. Because when you cut it down off the frame, you don't want it springing back and shrinking. It has to remain the same size, but you also need tension to bead into it. Like, it has to be held tight. So if you've ever used an embroidery loop before, you'll know you can't stretch it too stretchy, or it lacks integrity when you take it off the hoop. So then this one is where I started my YouTube channel. So you can actually see the step-by-step video of me making this one. So the purple big bits are bead clusters. I actually pre-made them. So there's like a little bead underneath, and then I beaded over the top. Lots and lots of purple beads for each one of those, and there's like 40 of them. Once they were done, then again I did the black base of sequins, and then I put on the big beads, then I put the medium-sized ones, and then I beaded the small ones. And as you can see, there's no tulle netting over the top, so nothing to protect it, which is, I mean, it was done during the pandemic. The idea of actually, being around people again, I don't know, it's just... Also, I'm much better at doing beads now, but yeah, I don't know. I do have some of that black, expensive bridal tulle, and I did think about putting a protective layer over the top, but I love how fluoro green those bright green ones are, and I just thought it would dull it down if I put the tulle over the top, so I didn't. And also it takes a lot of time to do the tulle, and by this time I was filming everything and I had 1 video each week, so I just really didn't feel like I had the time to do that extra step that takes a lot of time. And this is my peach Melba one. The tweed again is from Linton Tweed. The purple one was an Italian tweed. This one's from Linton Tweeds in the UK, and it's beige and pink, but when I bought it, I think the colours were slightly off on the website and it looked like peach and raspberry, and that's why I bought it. the dessert, the peach melba. And so that's how I ended up beading it to really bring out the raspberry and the peach colours. And so I started making my tweed jackets back in 2009. And by this time, so one was made 2 years ago, you really can see how three-dimensional the beading is. It's very adventurous and, three-dimensional. I get a lot of people asking if there's beads on the back as well as the front. Yes, it's really important to me that the whole garment age the same way and have structural integrity. So having the same weight on the front and the back, the same weight on the left and the right is really important to me so that the whole piece will age the same way. And that's why it also takes so long with the structural layers and adding the beads just layer by layer instead of doing just one section start to finish, then moving around doing another section start to finish. I do these really thin layers. Like first I do the sequins on the bottom, then I do some of the biggest beads all the way around. And so when I lay out again, you can just see the separate video of this being made start to finish. So I do the sequins on the whole thing and the cuffs, and then I do all the big beads, then I do the medium ones, and then I start stitching on, in this case, all the flowers, one little stack at a time, and I just go round and round until it's eventually done. This is the Banana Chanel. Again, there's an entire video on this one. That one was amazing to do. And then this one is also a clustered one with different colours in different groups. Again, the bead clusters were done first, and then I used them in this. This also has giant sequins, those oval shaped ones, and I folded them so that they're very three-dimensional, and it just adds this amazing texture to them. And once all the big bits were done, then I added these medium size and the small beads. There's seed beads, and there's also these little angelfish beads. I absolutely love them. I love that one, but it's not very practical. So I'm thinking about taking them all off. And see that jar of orange beads over there? I think if I took off all these beads and just put flatter pink beads on that, but used all those beads and all those orange beads to make one whole jacket. Oh, this is the silk on the inside of this jacket, and you can see all the different colors in it. That's what inspired this beading. I do love it, but it's not the most practical jacket. Then I made this gray one, and oh my gosh, again, it's still very three-dimensional, but oh my gosh, stitching that on to the jacket was just a nightmare. So then I thought, what if I just stitch the beads directly onto the jacket instead of making a beaded trim, then having to attach the beaded trim, because attaching the beaded trim is an absolute nightmare and it just takes a really long time. So then this is the first embellished jacket that I did. So when you make beaded trim, that's trim that you then stitch on like you'd stitch on a ribbon, whereas this is stitching each individual bead onto a fabric, which is embellishment. So then I love the way the first one turned out, and then I made just a bunch of embellished ones. Actually, every beading I've done since then has been embellishment rather than beaded trim, because they just look amazing and I don't have to go through the nightmare of hand stitching on the beaded trim, because when you stitch on beaded trim you have to pin it into place perfectly, and then you have to go along and you have to do 3 rows of stitching, but you need to use invisible thread to do it. And invisible thread just knots like you would not believe. Think of the worst thread that you've ever used, and it's like 10 times as bad as that. So yeah, embellishment just looks so pretty. And because I have the structural layers on my jackets, it carries the weight of them. So it's probably about the same. Most of these jackets probably have the same amount of weight of beads that my beaded trim ones did. Obviously, when you're making beaded trim jackets, You can use beads of all different sizes. Like this one, I went a bit extreme, but you can still use really large beads. And, you know, there's massive ones, then large ones, then quite large medium ones, as well as medium. And then there's a smattering of small ones in there as well. But when you embellish, you kind of just have to use the small, medium size ones, or medium small. So you can't use any large, you can't use any of the medium large ones, and you can't use any of the really small ones either. And then these three I did in there was one episode, and I did, because I sort of worked on one and then I got stuck and I was like, oh, which bit, how should I do it next? And then I worked on another one. So I sort of rotated between 3 jackets that episode. And oh my gosh, because I think I'd finished filming one episode, the previous episode early, and that was all done and uploaded. So then I felt like I had enough time to do 2 or 3 jackets, and oh, it was very ambitious. But yeah, I love this jacket. It's almost completely beaded. Like you can sort of see the tweed through there. There's a bit at the back where I left a patch and you can actually see the tweed. And obviously on the inside, the front 2 panels of the lining are the tweed. But yeah, I still really, really want to make a jacket that's just entirely beaded. So yeah, I think I'll have to wait until next year now. But I really, really want to make a jacket that's just beading. Like, so I'll have netting. The jacket will be made out of 3 or 4 layers of netting. There won't be any tweed. And then I'll just bead it. So again, what you do is you just do layers and layers of beads rather than trying to do every single bead at once. You just do about a third or a half the coverage that you want, and then you go back and you do another layer, and that way it just ages really well. It does make it extremely difficult to judge where each bead should go. It's all done by eye and done by hand. There's no marks on there. So, yeah, it's very difficult. And with this one, I didn't know what colour beads to use. I was like, should I use orange? And then this jacket here, see all these beads? This is what I originally beaded my orange Chanel with, or the orange apricot, cream, lemon, beige. It's what the orange Chanel tweed, it's got all those colours in it, and I did it, and then I had to unpick it because it just didn't work. And the green looks magnificent. It's exactly what I want it to look like. Kind of looks like a strawberry in a way because of the shape of the beads, but I love the way it turned out. And then I ended up using all those orange, that bag of orange, yellow apricot beads on this one. This tweed, I bought 3 meters of this tweed, so there's actually 3 jackets, and each of the 3 looks completely different. There's one with teal colored beaded trim, and then there's this one with the fringe and the orange beading, and then there's the Monet one, which is sort of pastel colored beading on it. And they're so different, but they're all exactly the same. If you took all the beads off, the 3 jackets would look the same. And then I've got the floral jacket, but that is technically beading and embellished. So it's done using the same methods and, you know, the same techniques, but it's just amazing. Again, it's got bead clusters. There's flowers on stems, so bugle beads, and they stand up, and loads of beading in there, and also the fabric flowers. But yeah, and you'll see that dress in another week or so. There's another fabric haul, and that's one of the fabrics. I'm just giving you a sneak peek now, but because this is the only footage I had of this jacket, and I couldn't be bothered getting it away again because it's carefully packed up in its storage box. But I used all the same techniques, and that was just, the floral jacket is amazing, technically amazing. I really want to make another one because it just stretches you and makes you use really good technique. And this is my Edinburgh Chanel jacket, and there's another photo of the hot pink and red one. I want to make another jacket like that too. And then I did this one, which is a snow dump. So instead of doing all over embellishment, I did it's sort of like it's sprinkled on the shoulders. and there's also some on the cuffs. It took me a while to work out how this would age well, and I've got the fringe at the bottom. There's a little bit of weight in the fringe because I used 4 layers of fringe, so it does have the weight. A Chanel jacket has to have a little bit of weight at the hem to make it sit correctly, and I, instead of using beads to add that weight or the gold chain on the inside, which is the traditional method, I use the fringe. And it's, some of those beads are made out of porcelain and they're little skulls. I love that. And this is one I made just a few months ago. It's an embellished one, but this one was really tricky because when you use sequins, you sort of, when you embellish with a sequin, you have to use both your hands to do embellished sequins because you have to hold the bead above and then pull it down with your other hand. It's just a much more complicated. So this one was really tricky to do. If I can see why people do sequin style embellishment on a frame and then cut each piece off, then make the jacket after the embellishment is done. So yeah, I want to do another one of these jackets, and use better technique. The thing is, if you do the embellishment first, then you sew all the pieces together, your jacket has less integrity. Whereas if you do it this way, you sort of sew, like I sewed the sleeve. This is a dolman sleeve jacket again, and it just has one central seam line around the sides and then around the shoulders. It's sort of like almost like one continuous seam line, so you can make it up into a whole jacket and keep it flat and then embellish into it. So yeah, this has really strong structural integrity. So yeah, from a technical point of view, this was a good way to make this. But I feel like even if you made it this way, but you could do it on a frame, I'm not sure how that would work because it's just it has such a great surface area. But I'm thinking about, yeah, it's just so much easier to bead onto a frame. So I'm just in my head, I'm trying to work out how I can do it on a frame, but also it's kind of too big to be on a frame. But yeah, I really like how I was finally able to use some of the larger beads in this and also some of the smaller beads, because up until this point with the embellishment, I'd just been using the small medium beads or medium small beads, whereas this one has small, it has medium, and it has large beads. So I was really happy with the way I worked that. And on this one and the sequin one that I just showed you previously, I was working on a grid rather than beading the entire thing like I had for the past year. I've been doing fully embellished jackets, and it's just, when you fully embellish, it's much easier to judge how the weight will age. Whereas with these two more recent ones, yeah, it was really tricky. So with this one, if you've seen I made 3 videos when I was making this jacket because it just took so long to make. And the first one I just did basically half as much beading, and then I decided that wouldn't be, like, for it to age well, it needed twice as much beading. So I think I'm working out the grids and how they will age well. I love that I've figured out how to use the small beads and the large beads as well, because I have quite the collection of beads, and I have to, the point of beading these jackets is to use up my bead collection. So yeah, that's sort of a tour of the evolution of my beading. Obviously, I've got a lot more jackets to go. But yeah, I'm really happy with my progress, as you know, and my technique and how I'm improving and evolving design-wise as well. I think I've always been pretty good at working with colour. Like, you can see the colours that I've picked out in this tweed that are in the beading, and this is one of the really early ones. I do think I'm more adventurous now. Like, the green on the orange Chanel As soon as I, started doing the green beads, I don't know, it just felt so perfect to me. This is an old one as well, and it's just so, you would not think that fluoro coral color would tie in well with that. And this one too, you wouldn't think giraffes would look so. I mean, maybe some people don't think it looks good at all, but to me, this is just a perfect combination. The blue tweed has little spots of pink in there, and I just love this one so much. So yeah, going forward, I look forward to being more adventurous in my color combinations and just having so much fun with the beading. I've still got loads of beads yet to use, but I'm really happy with the way that I've been going along, and I look forward to doing more beading and being more adventurous and having a lot more fun with it and developing my skills. I really, really want to make more floral jackets too, because they are just technically so demanding to work on. But to make those fully beaded jackets and the beaded trim and having time to stitch that on, and I'm trying to work out so I'm sort of planning for next year already. And I'm trying desperately to work out how I can have enough time to do the complicated things. Because, all the things that I'm interested in doing are really complex and time consuming, and I want to invest that time, but I'm just trying to work out, how do I make videos, like keep up a production schedule, but also get to make the things that I want. So I'm thinking next year I'll do a lot of mock-ups of jackets. Like I've got 50 or 100 jacket sewing patterns that I haven't even tried yet, because I basically like 3 patterns. So, I think I'll do mock-ups just in, quilting cotton. And instead of hand stitching all the seams, all the seam allowance back, I'll just press it into place. And that way you take all the hand sewing, most of the hand sewing, out of the process. So, I should be able to make, a lot of videos about doing mock-ups and different jackets, and then do review of all the different jacket patterns. And that would be a lot quicker than, see, each of these tweed jackets that I make, there's so much hand sewing in there. And then that's just to make the jacket. Then you have to do the beading, and the beading takes at least as long as it did to make the actual jacket. So it's just really, all the good things take so much time. So I'm trying to find out find a balance where I can still make interesting content that's interesting to people who aren't quite as fascinated by beading as me. So but I think I'm going to strike a good balance for next year. Just have to get through the rest of this year first. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this little trip down my beading evolution and seeing a few of my jackets. Thanks again for watching, and happy sewing. Oh, this one, it's mainly flowers, but there is one red bead that's a cicada or a cicada, depending how you say it. That's it there. And so cicadas burrow into the ground beneath the plants. So I thought it was really cool. And my fingers hurt so much making this one, because I don't wear thimbles or anything like that. It would just take too much time to bead wearing a thimble. But be warned, if you watch that red and black flower video of me making the beaded trim, there is a section at the end where I complain about how sore my fingers are, because beading needles are sharp on both ends. So ouch. Took a little while for my hands to heal after that one. Anyway, even despite that, happy sewing.